agree. Thank you for that question, Jody. Look, the Hamas terrorist organization they continue to cling to its refusal. And the latest information I can give you that Israel, at this moment, is still awaiting an official response via the mediators of Hamas. But to this point, I can share with you that Hamas have continued to refuse. They are continuing to refuse the hostage return proposal, which Israel has agreed to. Consistently, Israel has agreed and Hamas have not agreed. Israel has agreed to the Qatari proposal and the updated Witkoff framework. It is Hamas, unfortunately, which persists in its refusal, and they have been setting unacceptable conditions. So the Israeli negotiating team is still in Doha, and these talks are continuing, and they will continue because our objective is to get our hostages home. As you know, in Gaza, there are 50 hostages still remaining, the living and those already murdered, cruelly abducted by the terrorist organization Hamas. Look, it's 656 days now. 656 days of appalling captivity. 20 of our hostages remain alive. That's the latest information we have. We, from our point of view here in Israel, have a moral and ethical obligation to do everything possible, and that is precisely what we are doing, and we will not rest, and the Prime Minister has repeated this again and again and again. We will not rest until every single last one of them are home. The dead for a decent burial, for closure for their families, to be reunited with their families, and for burial in Israel, and the living, so they can begin to rebuild their lives from their appalling ideal. I would just say to you that if the international media and the international community put as much pressure on Hamas to release our hostages than it has done over the last few days of this false claim of famine in Gaza, this false claim of famine, where the famine, which hunger which has been orchestrated by the terrorist organization, then our hostages would have been home a long time ago. So our efforts to secure their return continue constantly. We're in coordination with the US. The Prime Minister is in personal contact with the President, President Trump, as well as with Steve Witkoff. And look, since the October 7th terror attack, we've managed to get back 205 people from Gaza. That's no mean feat. Our experts were saying that none of them would come home alive. 148 of them have come home alive. 57, unfortunately, came back deceased. And we are extremely grateful to President Trump and Mr. Witkoff for their steadfast support in our tireless effort to get our people home. They must be set free now, not tomorrow, not for another moment, right now. Our people must be set free right now. Okay, next question from Yotam Confino from the Daily Telegraph in the UK. There's some confusion about NGOs and their work inside Gaza after the GHF began distributing aid. Are international NGOs allowed to distribute aid inside Gaza from their regular distribution points, or are they only allowed to collect aid from the border crossings and then distribute from there? Thank you for that question, Yotam. I think the precise answer to that question, you probably should go to COGAT so they can give you the precise answer. But my understanding is that aid organizations, including United Nations agencies, can distribute the food and the aid, but they need to pick it up first. No more excuses, no more trying to prolong this process. It is time for them to pick it up and stop blaming Israel for the bottlenecks which are occurring. There is hunger in Gaza, but if the UN did its job and other UN agencies did its job and picked up those 700, just imagine how many mouths that could feed, 700 truckloads of aid, then it would alleviate the problems which exist, which are caused by Hamas and also, unfortunately, by excuse me, the United Nations not doing its job. Question from Alona Vital from NPR. question about Israeli authorities and journalists being allowed to leave